Hey, and we're live, right? Hi, welcome to another episode of the Leadership Studio. I am here today with my friend and colleague, Jeremy Long. I love the Leadership Studio because one of the things that I get to do here is talk to people in leadership spaces who have really, really interesting things to say. And I know that, Jeremy, you are one of those people. So I'm really delighted that we get to have this conversation. Before we jump in to our topic, which has disappeared from the screen because the StreamYard has changed its interface and I don't know how to fix it. Our topic, which is the connected leader in a disconnected world. Before we jump into that, Jeremy, why don't you introduce yourself? Because you're going to do a better job than I will.
Well, and I think I already did by dancing to the intro music. That was pretty exciting. I was really feeling the vibe. Yeah, my name is Jeremy Long. Happy to be here with you always. Todd, one of my dear friends. And I would say that I partner with underestimated professionals to become unignorable rebel leaders. Mic drop.
I like that. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Thank you. And here we are. So our topic is the connected leader in a disconnected world, which is a little up here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So let's bring it down. Like what the hell do we even mean? Like, what's a disconnected leader? What's a connected leader? Why is our world disconnected? And why do we even give a shit about this?
Yeah, I think that the topic of that and sort of unpacking what does connection even look like or mean, because I feel like you and I might have a different definition of what connected really means. Mm-hmm. I would assume that most people out in the leadership space are sometimes thinking about connection more on the surface of being liked and being jovial, as opposed to, I think, where you and I would probably take it, is connected includes hard truths, healthy conflict, like going deep, courageous conversations, and that actually is real connection.
I agree. I think I love what you're saying, because I think that there's an expectation also that connection has something to do with alignment or agreement, and I would argue that it absolutely does not. Like, we can be on wildly different sets or positions of the same topic and still remain connected. And I think that that's the thing. So connected to what? Maybe that's the question. Like, connected to what? What do you? Because I have an answer, but I'd really like to know what you think.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is if we're in leadership, if that's what we're talking about, really, it's people mistake leadership for management, and we don't think about, like, leadership is literally leading people. So I feel like it's connected to people, but I would say that that's two-pronged. It's connected to the people you're leading, but it's also connected to the people that is you.
Yeah.
And how well connected are you even to yourself, or disconnected for that matter, and how that gets in the way of how you're showing up and actually leading change.
I agree. Right, like the shorthand that I like to use in these spaces is connected to humanity, right? Whether that's my humanity or your humanity or someone else's humanity.
Great way to summarize it. Yes.
And so if we take so that's connection, right? That's the first part of our title. The second part of the title is a disconnected world, and I think that's sort of interesting too, because I think it's interesting. Do you want me to start, or do you want to go
with this one? Take us there.
Because I've got so many opinions on this one. My background in corporate leadership was one of profound disconnection, and I don't know that I would have described it that way at the time. But sort of from the rearview mirror, there was sort of this expectation that if I connected to something emotional, if I connected to my humanity, someone else's humanity, if I expressed empathy. And we've heard this sort of thing, politically, especially this year, but I mean, prior to that as well, there's a weakness that went along with that, right? So in order to project strength in leadership, I worked really hard to suppress those things, which now I work with leaders to help them connect. And I know you do too. And so that's what I think disconnected world is, because it's celebrated. There's so much of business right now that demands and rewards disconnection, that this can feel counterintuitive So I'm gonna pause. What have you got?
I mean, I love all of what you're saying because you and I again speak that language, and leadership is missing something. And I
Mm-hmm.
would go further to say that the disconnection, the lack of humanity, it goes as far as like traumatizing people.
Mm-hmm.
And because why do we have two versions of ourselves? Why do when we
Mm-hmm.
show up at work, that show Severance is such a good definition or metaphor of
Mm-hmm.
like we cut off ourselves and like you said, suppress, which gets in the way of leveraging influence because we're not
Mm-hmm.
connected to the human. They don't know who we are. They don't trust us. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
these moments of vulnerability. And I think power, like the way that we see power is so not healthy. Power can be speaking your truth with vulnerability and
Mm-hmm.
being in deep connection that leverages influence and
Mm-hmm.
leverages humanity and diversity. And right now we're still, especially now, because the world is so chaotic, especially North America, with how politics influences leadership and the
Mm-hmm.
workspace, people are being so careful.
Yeah.
And when you get further up, the stakes are higher. There's major job scarcity. And again, because of constant layoffs, there's all this corporate trauma that is
Mm-hmm.
leading people to retreating and being careful
Mm-hmm.
and even more disconnected from themselves, what they really need,
Mm-hmm.
and how the organization is impacting the people that are
Mm-hmm.
part of it.
Mm. Yeah, it it feels, and it also feels like we're on the cusp of something, because like it's not. And what I love about this conversation is that it's not just you and me.
Mm.
Like it's, this change is something that people are noticing a lot. And I think that what's really interesting to me is, so what does that mean? Like if I feel this connection, what are some things that I can do
Mm-hmm.
that can help me, sort of lead to disconnection? And what has your experience of disconnection been? Like either, you personally or in your practice or whatever, right? Like I know I got stories, but what's it been
Well,
like for you?
yeah, I mean, the over the probably thousands of leaders at this point that I've sort of connected with and coached or trained at different levels, I see what keeps surprising me is how people lack the awareness to go deep on their own perspectives, their
Hmm.
own dysregulation, and how they don't know how to even just connect with themselves. And so, like, really
Mm,
starting there is so important and giving people permission to have a voice and
mhm,
an opinion about how things are going off the rails in their
mhm,
workplace or because again we get so caught up in like our communities and our workspaces and we kind of see things as they are, how they always have been, and kind of just take it for granted that that's the way it is going to be, instead
mhm,
of giving ourselves permission to connect to what's important, connect to what we long for in our work or in the world, and allow
mhm,
people permission to dream differently and create a vision. And I have a mentor that says leadership is creating a world that otherwise would not exist. And I
yeah.
think that sometimes leaders aren't giving themselves permission to be in that level of thinking. They're
Mhm.
just going along with, well, this is how it is.
Yes, and I think that's because yes, the thing that you said earlier that I wrote down was, permission to connect to what's important,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think, you know, like if I just go back into my own Wayback Machine and I think of, myself as a corporate leader,
Yeah, yeah,
um, and what it was like for me, if someone had said to me, Todd, are you connected to what's important 10, 15 years ago? I would have said, absolutely, I'm connected to what's important. Let's take a look at the shareholder report. Let's take a look at right? Like let's take a look at sort of the external markers of success in scare quotes, whatever that means, right? For me to determine whether or not I'm connected. If someone had said, "Hey Todd, do you feel connected in your body?"
yeah,
I probably would have gone,
yeah,
"I don't know what that means."
yeah.
Right? Like
I know you would have answered that way.
exactly. Like yeah, like what the hell do you mean by that?
Yeah,
Um and I think, connect to what's important to you, leader.
yeah.
And I got to tell you, like, if I had a dime for every time I was talking to a leader, either one-on-one or in a group setting or whatever, and I asked the question, what's important to you? And they look at me with a blank stare, right? It's, well, I mean, I wouldn't be rich, but, I could buy a trashy novel, and that's a lot of dimes.
Well, and I think that to that point also, there's this level of self-exploration that we all assume that we are aware of. And this is my constant surprise. When we ask these questions as coaches that are very provocative, probing, deep, people are caught off guard because until then, they assumed that they knew all there was to know about themselves, or that they had done the right amount of work.
Right.
And I think that's where, again, we have to be conscious to, like, open to learning more about ourselves, to be surprised, and dare to think, oh, maybe I don't know all there is to know about me, about this place, about my values, about how to lead change. And I think that's what we don't do well in just humanity, because we all think we got it.
And what I'd add to that is we think we got it because being in that space of I got it is rewarded. It's celebrated. It's like, you know, for decades and decades and decades, the leader, like the, you know, a hallmark of a good leader was, you know, do they have the answers? Not can they ask the questions?
Which is funny because anyone can learn strategy and management, but learning to emotionally attune to yourself and others, like it's funny because they call it soft skills, but they're the hardest skills to learn.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. Not only are they the hardest skills to learn, they're the ones that are the differentiators.
Yes.
Because being a strong strategist, I almost said strategician. I just made that up. Being a good, not bad, eh? I think being a good strategist, being someone who can operate from a strategic document and execute, right? Being a good executor. That's not enough anymore, because we're like, you and I and all of us are looking forward into the future that looks nothing like what the past did. Like the kinds of challenges that we're about to face are unique. They're generational.
And what do we think that's causing in people? Because I think it's like a breaking point right now. And I'm kind of curious, like, what are your thoughts on where we're kind of going? And especially because our role as supporting leaders is, I also see us equipping leaders. And so there's something about that, because this is a very interesting time.
You're speaking to my why, because I hold a bunch of beliefs, and you know some of them, but one of them is that I believe business can heal.
I like that.
And so what do I mean by that? What I mean is that, you know, so much of business has been geared towards success, towards you know, unlimited and complete growth, and there's a reframe that needs to happen, and part of that reframe is connecting to humanity. So, and I think that that's possible. I'm noticing that Brian has a really interesting comment, and I want to go back to that. So here, I'm going to pull it up on the screen. Here we go. Right. So Brian says, you know, agreeing with you, Jeremy, that we got it mentality. Leaders often feel that they need to know it all, or exude that they need to know it all by saying we don't got it feels like a weakness. And, you know, so thanks, Brian. I think that's exactly where we're going with this. There's an opportunity in the I don't know.
Well, and I don't know about you, but in coaching leaders, constantly, like, that sort of paradigm of showing some vulnerability and sharing that I don't got it, or that, you know, that I'm looking for other options. Again, leaders are afraid to do that sometimes. And I know we're kind of generalizing, but a lot of people, I get surprised because there's this element of, well, I don't want to show weakness, right? That's such a big fear. But really, there's this idea of, you know, being with people in the not knowing and sharing that, like, that is a vulnerable but powerful place. Like, even coming in with, this is my idea, like, help me destroy it to make it even better. Like, you know, like, show me where I'm missing something.
Yes.
People don't do that.
And let me be okay with the destruction of that idea.
Yes. us.
Right? Like, let me figure out how to be okay with the destruction of the idea. Sam's got a comment here too, so let me pull that one up. So, afraid of this is precisely what we're talking about. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
Right. You know, being afraid of that vulnerability, and I think it's you know, being okay to get it wrong. Like, being okay to present the idea and not it's funny, you said that you're generalizing, and I'm just like, I'm going back into my own history and thinking to myself in those times when it's like I knew that I had the right idea and I would present the idea and it was so brittle. It was so brittle that it didn't withstand any pressure, and instead of making it more flexible, I tried to strengthen it. Right? Like, I added more and more layers so that it was harder to break, but it was still brittle.
Which is, again, what you mentioned earlier. It's like, this is part of what is taught to us in our workplaces and society, and that it's rewarded. Sorry, that's what you really highlighted. And what I would say, that even in some of our leadership development, sort of understanding the different life stages, not just leadership development stages, but life stages. You know, in our early world, we have this very socialized mind, and how other people respond to us sort of tells us if we're okay or not, right? Which is normal in our early life. But then we move into this self-authoring place, which is daring to know and daring to almost be like, I am right. And there's something powerful about that. But sort of like graduate version of leadership and adult development is often more about inviting contradictions and looking for where I could be wrong, to what you said earlier. And again, we don't always know how to get there, which I think is why our work is so important. Like, lets people help be comfortable being wrong, look for where we're wrong to make things even better. And that's where innovation lives. And that's where we really need right now to go, because of the world is in such a chaotic state.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the why. Why is this important? Because in order for there to be innovation, in order for there to be creativity, there needs to be safety, right? Yeah. You need to be safe to fail.
Yeah.
And in order for there to be safety to fail, there needs to be a human-to-human connection. There needs to be empathy. I need to care about you as an individual, as a person, rather than just as someone who might or might not have a good idea. Rather than that, right? Like, you're a person in this world and important because of that, not just because you generate shareholder value. And there's something that becomes possible in that space. And you're right. I think the word is innovation or creativity or whatever, right? Like experimentation, because we're going to need a whole hell of a lot of experimentation with our systems, with our. I'm sorry?
What do you think gets in the way of that?
Oh, okay. So the word that immediately popped into my head, and I'm open to this being completely wrong, is ego. But yeah, I think, is it ego or is it something like that? There's a fear, and no one wants to say fear. Like, I don't want to look back on my career.
Fear.
I do not want to look back on my career, Jeremy, and say that I led by fear for decades, but I led using fear as a tool, and I led through fear, experiencing fear for decades.
Well, and I love that, because let's pull the lid off that and say, I think a lot of us, in fact, most of us, especially in this state of the world, we are living in fear. Even if in the day it doesn't look like that, but subconsciously there's some element of fear. The higher you go, what if I lose this? I was coaching someone yesterday. We revealed, unveiled to him that, there's an extra pressure because now his partner is working half-time, and there's an extra pressure. What if I lose this? Right. So maybe I shouldn't rock the boat. Fear, right? The economy, fear, layoffs, fear. And we're not talking about it. We're definitely not talking about it at work. And we're definitely not talking about it if we're the leader that's supposed to hold it all together for everybody.
I agree. And you know what? I think this is connected to a comment that Brian just made too, so I want to call that up. Leaders feeling that their position is fragile. And if you feel that your position is fragile, right? If you feel that your position is open to that kind of exposure, like you just described, then yeah, exactly like Brian's saying here, this is about putting on armor. Oh my God, I was putting on so much armor. Like I had so much armor I couldn't walk. And I mean it. Like by the time I was done, one of the reasons that I flamed out of the job that I flamed out of so badly, and everyone knows that I did that, so I'm not revealing anything. But but the was because if I would use the same metaphor, I was wearing so much armor I couldn't move, paralyzed because everything had to be perfect, so nothing got created.
Yeah.
Fear.
Which is interesting because I'm hearing that about you, and I'm also reflecting on my own journey in different roles and organizations, and I see that, and it's sort of like an armor and a almost holding back maybe, and or appearing as strong and maybe stoic even. That I think that's sometimes where people go, and then some of us and the people that I like to work with a lot are actually sometimes the opposite, and we go into this defensive, reactive, like pissy place where we're like, well, fuck this. Sorry, that was swearing, but and there's an element of that I have been extremely dysregulated in past jobs when I felt like there was unfairness and being part of the queer community, and that's who I coach best as well as part of underrepresented groups,
right?
That are they get angry in these situations because things are unfair, unjust, unequitable. And that also doesn't get us anywhere because then we're not showing up with executive presence and regulation and confidence. We're showing up as pissy.
Well, and isn't that interesting? Because I think, even if you go from the other side, right? And I'm thinking like the people who traditionally hold leadership roles, whether that's in corporate or politics or whatever, right? Like, the sort of garden variety, cis het white men. And there's nothing wrong with being a cis het white man, of course. It is just that there is a type of fragility that goes along with an expectation of access to power. And such that when there is conflict, when there's a challenge in the field, right, it becomes a whole lot harder to accept that challenge. It becomes a whole, right? And it's so part of what I really love to do is working with tyrant leaders, right? And often they don't recognize themselves as tyrant leaders, right? But working with tyrant leaders, right, who are struggling in that space. And one of the first things is like, okay, well, where is the fear? What's the fear actually of? Let's identify what that is. Because it's always there. And that's not abnormal, it's not a weakness, it's not anything, it's simply human. Because we're all afraid of something.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny though, because in that corporate space, do people have that container? I think that's why coaching can be a benefit, because it's often the only place where people are like vulnerable enough to say, yeah, there's a lot of pressure. I'm afraid. But they can't show that out externally to their teams or to their other leaders because they want to show face.
Yeah, it's interesting. Someone once said to me, the difference between a coach and a sponsor at work, right, is your sponsor is someone that you want to show your polished version to, right? Because the sponsor, you're going to take that polished version of yourself, and that sponsor is going to take it and put you into the places that you want to be. Your coach or your mentor, that's someone you want to show up with all the warts and scratches and messiness and like all of that stuff, right? Because that's got to be the safe space for it. And whether that's a coach that you hire that's external, like like what you and I do, or whether that's someone that you work with that you trust within the organization, having someone in that space for you so that you can do that, right? So that you can innovate, not just what the world is going to need, but what you need to become connected in a place that wants you to stay disconnected. So important, so very, very important. Well, and I know precisely who did that for me the very first time, and she was not a professional coach. She was just a really, really, really well-connected VP. And I'm so grateful to her all the time.
What was the transformative insight moment for you?
She actually wanted to know how things made me feel, and she wasn't interested in me focusing on my strengths. She wanted to probe at the hard stuff.
Good. Juicy. Yeah. The juicy stuff.
Really, really juicy. And I learned so much. Like there's so much wisdom in those spaces, and there's spaces that are really hard to go.
Well, and I like that part because there's a lot of power when we access our pain points, when we kind of go there and look for, again, this is where the reframe that you and I spend time with in our work is showing people that when we name the hard thing and look at the pain point and then find the gift that it's bringing you that we don't want to look at when it's happening.
Yep.
But we don't get that gift if we don't go looking. If we just kind of suppress it, like you said earlier, and we kind of pretend it's not happening and just pretend to be strong as we can, instead of looking at what's really killing us and looking for what the gift is that's emerging out of it.
Jeremy, I'm looking at the time.
Okay.
And we've almost run out of our time, and I can't believe because I can keep talking to you about this forever. But I'd love to sort of leave folks with a nugget, right? Like, you know, if I were to ask you the question, like, you know, if I'm a leader and I'm looking for evidence of my disconnection, or if I'm a leader and I'd really like to experiment with connection, like what's something easy? What do you recommend?
It's funny because when I think about connection, I actually think about courage.
Cool.
And if there's moments in your space where, to the point that we've been talking about, is there someone that you can confide in like you would a coach, but also that you can explore some of the pain and the fear to look for the gift that's coming from it. But first by naming the thing that hurts. Yeah. Maybe there's some courage and find, you know, choose your people wisely. Don't get yourself, don't go jumping over the edge of, you know, overwhelmed with vulnerability because you'll have a major hangover. But finding someone that you can step into a little bit of courage, a little bit more truth, and see if there's some resonance there that might actually lead to something moving, some edge that you're crossing actually get easier when you're not doing it by yourself.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. What I would add to that is I want to share kind of like the thing that started it for me. And it was a quote that I heard, and it was once I'm willing to feel everything, I can do anything.
Oh, I love that.
I hated it when I heard it the first time. I hated it because I thought to myself, oh, you know, like I can think of a dozen things that I felt before that I never want to feel again, and I can probably think of 24 that I haven't felt that I don't want to try. Yeah. And you know, so my advice would be, you know, if you think of that, like, you know, if I'm willing to feel everything, I can do anything. What does that feel like to you? Because if it gives you an ick, the way that it gave me an ick, ask about why. Dig into that. See what's there. Because I think there's something interesting there. Just find this much. Just notice this much first.
Well, and what if that was rewarded more than just competence?
Absolutely. I love that. Well, that's the world that we're working towards. It's a great way to
end. We are.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Jeremy, if folks want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn's probably a good place. LinkedIn.com/Jeremy Long Coach. That would be good. Or enhancedleadership.ca is my website.
Fantastic. And for everyone listening, we will put those into the show notes in both LinkedIn and on YouTube so that Jeremy's easy to get a hold of. You know where to get me. I'm Todd Cargis. You can reach me at toddcargis.com or here on LinkedIn. And I'm sure that either one of us would love to have a conversation with you if something sparked your interest and you want to know more.
We would, and I just really want to thank you for holding these conversations to give more people insights into the work that we do that some people don't. It's coaching doesn't live in everyone's space, and so to give this opportunity for people to understand what they can look at, I just want to commend you for doing that.
Thank you. And thank you. I receive that and with a lot of gratitude. And I love that I get an opportunity to talk to people like you who are doing this kind of work, because it's really, really important work. Like, this is the kind of stuff that's going to make the future better.
Oh, please. Yes. Let's do this together.
And we shall. I'm not done with you yet. All right. Thanks very much, Jeremy. I appreciate you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Brian, for participating in the conversation. This is a wrap for this episode for this year.
Goodbye, 2025.
Indeed. I can't wait for next year. I think it's going to be exciting. All right. See you next time.
Bye, y'all.